Hello, it's Jesse here. So we got the carburetors off the Tiger. Of course, we're going to go with one carb, so we're going to take the best of what we got here to get one good carburetor. These are Amal carburetors, like I said. They are the British standard for the
930.
Triumphs, Nortons, and BSAs. Royal Enfields, I believe, and they were the main carburetor that would run these things. This is a, what did it say there? It's a 930 model. They have a tickler on the side or a primer. You would turn your fuel on, hold this down, or push it until gas comes out of here. That primes the system before you start it. It has original plastic floats here, which with the introduction of alcohol in the gas, these kind of like melt away over time, end up leaking and causing the fuel to get inside of it and then never working right. Otherwise, here is an upgraded needle that has a Viton tip on it. Originally they were plastic needles, I believe. And then this is an upgrade. Then there's now a new upgrade for some of this stuff. So we'll talk about that here. So far, this is what we got here. So there's a few things we gotta look for. So
one of the things we look for is the bleed holes. Make sure the bleed holes are clear. If you can see light through them, which if you turn these in a certain way in light, you can look through it. That's important. As I found in this one carburetor when we took it apart, if you look real close here, this bleed hole is actually in fact plugged. So it will not bleed air, and it will not, that motor would not run right on this cylinder if this is a Bonneville. So this clearly was a problem. This is a jet holder. It screws into the main part of the carburetor like this. The main jet goes in here like this. The needle jet screws on the top side, and that screws all into there, and you just tighten it all the way up till you can't tighten it with like a wrench or whatever. And so then you tighten this in last, so that way if you need to change the jets out to richen it or lean it, you can take the plug out of the bottom of the float bowl and go up in here with the little socket and back the jet right out without taking the whole carburetor off, which is very convenient.
while it's on the bike, of course.
While it's on the bike. Earlier Amals did not have this plug, and it was all smooth under there. Then you'd have to take the float bowl off or the carburetor off, or whichever. The other thing we're going to do to these carburetors, which one of them, we're going to run one of these. Amal has since changed their slides. When they originally made these, they were made to a budget, and they were very cheap. They made the slide out of the same material as the body of the carburetor, which over a very short time, like let's say 4,000 or 5,000 miles, these things would wear out. Fortunately, I would say these carburetors were actually put on here not too long before the bike stopped running, and because there's almost no wear on them. And if we would have took this carburetor apart and seen all kinds of scoring and gouging and edge wear, then it would also be wore in here. And if you can see in there, there's a couple shiny spots, but your fingernail can't pick up any grooving. On the intake side where it sucks the slide up tight, it'll gall real badly. This one is hard. It's got a couple little polished lines on it, but the wear is very, very, very minimal. Hardly no wear. My fingernail can't pick up any. So I'm real happy about this carburetor. So we're going to buy a a new slide, which is called an anodized slide. They're made out of CNC aluminum, then they anodize them, which will turn it into a dark gray or black, and it is just smooth, and it will not wear ever, hardly ever, ever. So it'll last practically forever. So that's what we're going to do. The other thing we're going to do is I have some gauges, and we will check for needle wear. As these run, the needle is made out of a stainless type fabric or material, and they don't wear very much, but these are brass and they do. As they run, they jiggle because of the pulsing of the motor running, and they'll cause these to wear. And these wear pretty, this is considered a wear item, so you gotta change them. And that's how you keep your fuel mileage within range, and also keep the motor running, you know, to where it's not too rich. Because what'll happen is this hole will get elongated and get too big. So if that's the case, since we're buying new slides, most likely we'll just put a new needle jet in it. This one is a 106. They are stamped on them. They make them in 105s, 106s, and 107s.
Can't really zoom in on that very well.
Very well, there is a number.
There we go. There we go.
So
yeah, there it is. We see it. 106.
So anyway, we'll probably end up just putting new ones in it rather than run the old one. And we'll have to get a different jet because Bonneville had two carburetors, so they were splitting the amount of fuel going into the motor by one carburetor per cylinder. We are going to go with one carburetor for 2 cylinders. So this jet, which is a 220, which is actually not the correct one for it anyway. It should have been a 190. But I think the Tiger, we'll have to look in the book, but for guesswork, I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere around 300 to 320, somewhere in there. So it needs a lot bigger jet because it has to feed both cylinders. So that's what's going to happen there. There's also on this needle, I forgot to mention, there's 3 clips on here, 3 needle clip holes. This is the clip. If you put it at the bottom one, that raises the needle, makes it richer. The middle one makes it a little bit leaner. And if you put it all the way to the top, it's leaner yet. Most cases, the center one in the Midwest here works really good because of our elevation. You might have to change depending upon where you live. It's a tuning thing. So the other thing that we didn't talk about is these carburetors have a pilot jet. Now this is very hard to see. We don't have a real bright light here, but there's a brass jet way down inside of here. And can you see it anywhere in there?
Not really.
No. Well, it's in there. And it's pressed inside of here, way down in. So far in there that this little pointed screw adjusts the amount of air that goes through it to make the pilot mixture correct. That jet has a .016 hole, which is 16 thousandths of an inch. They plug, and I don't know if this one's plugged or not. We're going to make sure it passes. If you got a number 78 drill bit, that fits perfect, and you don't twist it. You just kind of poke it through and just kind of pull it in and out and blow air, so all the debris, if it's in there, it'll be that white crusty crap. You got to have that freed up because there's 2 holes, one on each side of the slide down inside of here. One's in front of the slide and one's behind the slide, right when you close it. way down here on the floor. You see them down there? There's 2 holes. One is here. One is here. Can you see that in there? We really need a light, don't we? Well, anyway, there's 2 holes. And when you turn that screw, it's allowing that to mix air with fuel and thereby give you the idle mixture. And by turning the screw in or out, you will lean or richen the mixture, whatever the motor requires to make it run very nice. So that's a ways down the road yet before we get to the tuning of this. We will also clean these carburetors up again. These carburetors have been sitting idle on this motor for 8 to 10 years, I'd say. So it doesn't.
Yeah, and this is a true set for a Bonneville thing. How we have a left and a right here. See how the primer's on the one side and the primer's on the other side? Yeah, so Tigers, I believe, their primer was what, on the right side.
So that one was
So this one, this body would be the correct one. No, wait.
Yeah. No, this one.
It would be this one. This side mounts up to the manifold. So this would be the right side. This would be this one. So hopefully that body's in excellent shape when we clean it up.
Well, we can run either one on a Tiger, really. It just depends upon which side you want the tickler on.
Yeah. So we're talking about the floats. The new float that they made was like a different type of material, so it doesn't like corrode from the alcohol in the gasoline nowadays, and the needle too. Yeah. Just usually try to not run a lot of alcohol through my bike anyway, but it's kind of hard to avoid sometimes. But yeah, otherwise, clean this stuff up and work on putting it all back together. So, all right, see you again soon. Okay, here we are. We're back. We're gonna start working on a carburetor for the Tiger we've been restoring here. So we only need one, of course, and the tickler goes on the right side, or the primer, however you want to call it. So yeah, I think we're ready to start working on some stuff here with it.
Well, here's a real nice 930R, and it's got the later tickler, which is the earlier ones have a small button way down here. And we could use one of them. We got several, but this one is really nice. It don't have hardly no wear at all. So, and that new anodized slide just fits in it just really nice. So the zinc one, which is same body stuff as this, is a little bit stiffer, but it's, I'd have to clean it because it's gummy and it's got some crud on it from sitting around for long periods of time. Well, anyway, we're not going to use it anyway. So here's float bowl, and here's the different floats. Now we could use this float and needle and pin, but there is so much alcohol gas out there. I think what's going to happen to this float is where they glue these together right here. They've been known that alcohol breaks that glue down, and then they start filling with gas and get heavy and don't work right. So although it's nice to maybe have these around, I suppose, but the new introduced float is a solid float. It's not hollow inside. It's like, let's call it foam or whatever it is, but and it's impervious to alcohol. So we are going to use this. And this this needle. Now the aluminum needles are very nice, and they may work maybe a little better because the brass is heavy, and so it'll shut off sooner, but I'm not going to worry about it. I've had good luck with both. Now, we need to make sure that this, when it closes up just like this, what I want to make sure is that the edge right here doesn't go out over the top of here. Maybe just down just a little bit. So you'll see this when I lift this. I just press on this part and come down to where it's solid, and that's where it stops. So that's where it'll stop when it's running. If you push too hard, the whole float lifts off the pin, so you can't do that. You just kind of feel where it stops, and you see where it's almost flush on the far side. Okay?
Yeah.
That's where we want it. Now, if it wasn't there, if it was way up here or way down here, with these floats, you can bend this right back here just a little bit, and I mean, you don't even bend it, you just kind of pry on a little bit till you get what you're looking for, and that's perfectly acceptable. So, this is set perfect. We're not going to even mess with it. Don't have to change nothing. It was also okay with this float. In fact, I could put that right back in here, and I can show you that way too, which tells me right out of the box that those floats are actually adjusted from the factory probably pretty well. And now this would run too. Although I will tell you that these floats and these floats, sometime the float level, actual gas level, will be slightly different. I don't know what, it's probably got something to what they call buoyancy, and it's probably a little bit different. But this one comes up just about the same place. And so we're going to call it good. Anyway, so, but we're going to use this one. So that's done. We'll wait to put that together. Now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to go through some of these. What happens to these is the needle, this is the needle and this is the needle jet. What happens to these is over a period of time of you opening and closing the throttle all the time, just varying all the time. And with the throttle, the air going through the carburetors constantly making this jiggle because of the pulses in the motor. So what will happen is that this edge starts to wear. Now these needles are actually pretty hard. These needles are like a stainless steel. This is brass. These were actually made in brass, so they do wear. Something's got to wear. So after a period of time, you replace these. I can't really tell you how many miles or how many years of use, but they wear. So you got to make sure that these bleed holes here, if you're going through used ones, make sure these bleed holes are open. This one is closed. See that? It's plugged. So you would have a real bad stumble, or you would have, it's just not going to run right when you start to open the throttle. And so you'd want to make sure the one you're going to use has good open holes there. Now the next thing you want to do is check for wear. And this one is fine. Now over here I got pin gauges. This is 0.106, and that is exactly what they use when they call it a 106. It's in inches. 0.106 is what the hole is. So you'd want to make sure that this just slides through with no play. This one is actually a little loose. This one feels pretty good. And this one feels a little loose. Now, to see how much wear, I have one here that's about a half of a thousandths bigger, so it's 0.1065. So this would be considered a no-go gauge. So if you could get it to go like that, it's got wear. Not much, because it's really tight when I do that. This one's real easy. So this is actually, this jet would be considered wore out, I would call it. Or richer, way richer. Same with this one. Now we want one that this doesn't go. And this is the one I picked earlier. It doesn't go at all. It goes in a little bit, but that's not where the jet is. So it just don't go. It's right down in here where it goes, and it don't go. So we're going to use this. Now I have other ones too. I got 105, 105.5, and a 107. So I got the full set from 105 all the way up through 107. And because, you know, you can get needle jets in 105s, and you can get needle jets in 106, and you can get jets in 107s. I've never used a 107 or a 105, but all the books call for a 106. So that's what we're going to use. So the needle jet goes up on the threaded side because it goes up inside the carburetor. So this threads in there, and the jet, which we're going to put a 250 in here because we're not going to go with completely stock exhaust. So we're going to richen it just a little bit. It's a good place to start. So, yeah. Okay. This threads into here. Again, this is a Whitworth wrench. That's about the only thing you're going to find fits. So you tighten that up. Now, the needle, there's three locations on this, and I'm going to put it in the middle.
See if I can zoom in on that. You have 3 slots.
Yep, got 3 slots here. You can see it closer maybe there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now one other thing I will note, I don't have any of them here, but there is right here in front of me. I probably could dig around and find some. But there's different needles, and there's little bitty scribe lines on the top. Okay? This one has 2 scribe lines. There's also one that has 3 and 4. Now the 4 one I'm familiar with, and the 4 one goes to a carburetor that has this little brass piece in here cut away. If you can see that.
Not really.
Here, you hold it. Look for it. This brass, you might have to get the light just right. It's cut.
Oh yeah, the brass piece down the bottom.
Yep. This one that we're using.
Oh yeah, it's a half a circle.
Yep, it's cut out. This one is not.
Oh yeah, see the difference here? We got a full circle in the bottom there.
Okay, for the full circle ones, that has to have the 2 ring. If you got the cutout kind, which is, by the way, an 850 Norton carburetor, then it uses the 4 ring because then the needle is about 1/8 of an inch longer. I'm just guessing. It's longer, and it'll have 4 rings on it. You don't want to put, if you have Nortons and Triumphs and you got a bunch of parts, you want to make sure you're using the right parts and the right carburetor. Otherwise, it's just not going to work right. So, this particular one needs the 2 ring because our piece right here is solid all the way around. So we're going to put that in we're going to start in the center. Most of the time that's where it goes. We're going to put this together. That goes in there. This goes down in here. There we go. This will go up in here. Well, for right now, we're not going to use any chokes. We might put the bike together with chokes, but we're going to do cables later anyway. So We're not going to worry about this all right now. What we're putting, just going to put this carburetor together.
Yeah, just setting it up.
So it's ready, pretty much ready to go. Because we got to buy new cables for this bike. But at least this way, we know it's essentially, all the parts are there, except for the chokes. We got those parts too. But I'm going to put a new gasket in it. That goes here. This way, by golly. Okay, just like that. And this goes up in here. These, there's two holes here. One's blank. Depending upon if it's a left or a right, this hole will be drilled on one or the other. And then that's where your pilot gets its gas. So you got to make sure you don't put it together backwards. Of course, it's really hard to put it backwards, but it could be done. So make sure that you got that right. And this goes up there like that. At least that's how I do it. Of course, I didn't bring a Phillips screwdriver over here. Go. So this carburetor, we put cables in it, adjusted these. We could, and we don't have to worry about synchronization on this because, well, you only got one carburetor, so you don't have to worry about any of that. That's one of the beauties of a Tiger. You got to put a O-ring back in here so that when it seals up against the manifold, there we go. I'll get a screwdriver and tighten these up later. I just know it's all assembled correctly and it's all there. So,
All right.
there's a carburetor.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and until next time, we'll see you again soon.